Today's panel discussion is a step in this direction. I would like to begin by introducing our panelists. Our first panelist is Dr. Manoj Kumar. He is a member of Rajya Sabha in Indian Parliament and also the spokesperson for the Rashtriya Janata Dal. He has also been a professor at the Department of Social Work at the University of Delhi. Our next panelist is Professor Shruti Bedi. She is a professor of law at University Institute of Legal Studies, Punjab University, Chandigarh. She is also a fellow at the National Institute of Military Justice in Washington, D.C. Our third panelist is Advocate Nagesh Jadhav, who is a social worker and the training manager of the Quest Grassroots Leadership Development Program at CORO, India. He has been engaged with organizations working towards civic literacy and awareness for several years. I welcome all of our panelists and express my gratitude to them for joining us today. In February 2021, 20 volunteers of socio-legal literacy went from school to school in different parts of the country, gauging the extent of interaction with the Constitution among school children. 93 schools were surveyed, 68 of which were privately owned and 25 were run by the government. It was observed through our empirical research that 60% of these schools had no interaction with the preamble of the Constitution, and 40% of these had no interaction with the Constitution altogether. Interestingly, when the schools were questioned about their interest in the conduction of sensitization and literacy workshops, more than 60% were interested. The results which we received were skewed against constitutional and civic awareness. This raises an apprehension because of holistic education at the primary level, that is schools, is very important for the growth of an informed and responsible citizen. Therefore, the importance of civic awareness and the way for its constitutional achievement is our agenda of discussion today. My first question is for Professor Manoj. The most important aspect of constitutional literacy and awareness translates to the awareness about fundamental rights guaranteed to us. The data collected by us shows that civic and constitutional literacy, particularly in areas which are prone to insecurity and disturbances, have a higher ratio of encroachment of the basic rights by the state. Our researcher from Srinagar and Barpeta in Assam had very different experience as compared to our researcher in Delhi. The school's administration in Srinagar were extremely reluctant to even engage in a conversation, let alone accept our proposals for the conduction of workshops, and the rate of civic literacy in the schools in Assam was less as compared to the school in, let's say, where the engagement of the students with the Constitution was much more. So this contrast that can be seen in the two parts of our country, what is the cause for that? What is the importance of civic literacy in the politically disturbed areas, and how can we address this concern?
I'll tell you, thank you very much. Thank you very much for not only doing it today, but the very idea of literacy, constitutional literacy. I don't know whether any other organization or many organizations are working, but then this is something what we need fundamentally today. Lots of constitutional literacy. You know why? My simple argument is you showed it. Your data speaks about these schools, and I don't like to share this. But if you do a conscious data collection, even amongst the parliamentarians, those who are considered to be the lawmakers or members of legislative assembly, their understanding of Indian Constitution and so many other things shall alarm you. And this alarm is a kind of indication that we need so much of these kind of literacy initiatives, not only at a school level, but as a continuous process at different levels of education, at also at different layers of policy making, parliamentary interventions, even among bureaucracy. Now, coming back to your query, I have no ready-made answer, but I'll tell you what is badly needed as of now. we all actually treated Constitution as a document which we put in on our shelves or in the libraries. We never realized that this document is a living testimony to how a nation should breathe, how a nation should look at the challenges ahead of us. We almost probably we celebrated Constitution Day, we celebrated Republic Day, but they became a ritual. Now the idea today, and that's why I said I was very happy. I just took one moment in saying yes to participating in this, only because I don't know many organizations are working on it, whereas we badly need it. You know, in the disturbed areas, so-called disturbed areas, and I don't consider those areas are disturbed by virtue of the fact that the people living in those areas want disturbance to continue. They are disturbed areas because somewhere the policy framework has not been able to engage with these areas, at least through the eyes and ears of Constitution. Because, you know, our Constitution is elastic in nature. It can accommodate so many things, but simply because I mean, for instance, I'll tell you, recently in Nagaland, 14 civilians were killed. APSPA was attributed, APSPA should be discussed. But you know, the deeper concern is that can we have two kinds of constitutional parameters in this country? One for the cow belt, so-called cow belt, and second for the areas, Northeast, for that matter, Kashmir. Long back, I had written a piece in which I had said that why the idea of human rights, which is so dear to our Constitution, it changes its meaning as soon as we cross the Jawahar Tunnel and reach Srinagar. Now, these are the anomalies. These are the anomalies, and these anomalies can only be rectified, can only be corrected. Again, I tell you, with all the viewers, not by the parliament, not by the assemblies, not by the top-down approach of bureaucracy, but by the initiatives you all have taken. The more penetration of these initiatives, these initiatives have, I can assure you that next time when we discuss this, say 1 year on from here, your data shall be much more, I would say, full of optimism. And as far as these areas are concerned, we shall be able to do course correction. Because of the lack of understanding of what the Constitution entails, what is there in the fundamental right, because of this lack of awareness, lack of knowledge system, I think that their state or the state apparatus, if they wish to go ahead with a blind spot, they go ahead and they don't meet challenges. I think least of all the constitutional challenges. And that's what I think. Thank you very much. I don't know whether I have been able to answer your question, because your question, though appeared simple, it is not when I look at the situation around my country today or even in yesteryears.
Thank you so much, sir. So in reference to the political dissent and resistance and the role constitutional literacy plays in it, I have a follow-up question from you. Baba Saheb Ambedkar had said, in India, bhakti, or what may be called the path of devotion or hero worship, plays a part in politics unequaled in magnitude by the part it plays in the politics of any other country of the world. Bhakti in religion may be a road to salvation of the soul, but in politics, bhakti or hero worship is a short road to degradation and to eventual dictatorship. In the present political scenario, idealizing of political leaders and therefore absolving them of accountability can be observed. This also leads to curbing of any political dissent or resistance due to the lack of reasonable support from many citizens who have the responsibility to hold the government responsible. My question is, to what extent does the lack of civic literacy contribute to the said hero worship, and what actions can be taken by the civil society society to exercise our right to hold the agents of governance responsible.
Thank you very much. What a day. I spoke in Parliament today on a motion of thanks to the President's address. And precisely I quoted Ambedkar on this. Right? I had carried a book. It's a Mahadev Govind Ranade lecture. And I had marked it. Precisely the point you said. I'll read it for the benefit. To accept a hero and worship him has become its principal duty. He was referring to his times. Under it, news give place to sensation, reasoned opinion to unreasoning passion, appeal to the minds of responsible people to appeal to the emotion of the irresponsible. Now, Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar said that in religion, I would say that if he was alive today, तो वो ये कहते कि धर्म में भी भक्ति मोक्ष नहीं होती है हमेशा. The kind of religiosity we see today, certainly devotion, a kind of superficial devotion will not lead to salvation, least of all in politics. But you know what has happened? You know, hero in a democracy has a tendency to become a cult. When a leader who is accorded the hero position, and he very gladly or she very gladly, let me be gender neutral, both he or she, because we had a she also 45 years ago, and the same kind of cult and hero worship continued. You know what happens when a democratically elected leader loves this hero worship and loves to be treated as a cult? The first casualty is the democracy within that party itself. Second casualty is the democracy outside in the institutional framework of the country, which are very, very important to protect the idea of democratic civitas and overall democratic participation. Now, we know what this hero worship kind of thing does. It disallows reason. It disallows dissent. No question. Hero is infallible. He is a cult. How can you question a cult? Now, long-term perspective, if we take, it damages the very root of democracy. It will damage the party which is loving it. Mark my words, the party which loved hero worship in the 1970s, see, they are counting their numbers. Where will they go from here? It's a cycle. Oswald Spengler, rise and fall of civilization. So rise and fall of an ideology, rise and fall of a cult. Ultimately, how do we challenge this cult? The answer lies in, because if we read our constitution, there are enough safeguards against hero worship. There are enough safeguards to have checks and balances on that hero. We don't dispute. A leader can be popular, but taking your popularity to the level of a cult and then destroying everything, then making every institution succumb to your whims is antithetical to the very idea of democracy. But who will do it? Again, let's not expect from the politicians. We need to have these initiatives at a very micro level in each school and colleges. We are dealing with a generation which had no meaningful engagement with constitution. So many a time when even small, things like secularism or socialism or equality, say, what is the use of equality? And many people will say, yes, what is the use of equality? The use of equality is there in the constitution. The relevance is that when you make a policy initiative, when you draft a legislation, this should guide you. This should guide you. Equality, fraternity, freedom. I think the only option I see is a movement kind snowballing of your kind of initiative. And I vouch for it that in whatever capacity you would want me to contribute, to engage with this initiative, I shall very gladly do it. Whosoever has conceived of this idea, this is a brilliant idea. I'm repeating it, but I would say it's a brilliant idea. We need to have more of constitutional legal literacy so that I mean, there could be heroes for a moment, but the hero will not occupy the perennial position or an infallible thing that the hero can't do wrong. And that's basically not the grain of democracy it might have worked in monarchy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for the support that you've shown us. My next question is addressed which women, caste minorities, religious minorities. I'm sorry, my internet is unstable. I would repeat my question. The representation of minority communities, which includes women, caste minorities, religious minorities, and queer people, bring in a diverse set of views to the table and bring forward important lived experiences, which pose important questions that must be addressed. At this point, it seems indispensable. However, our present circles, both in civil society and political environment, lacks this diversity. What do you think are the effects of the same in terms of our socio-political growth, and how can we address this concern?
Thank you, Tasneem. On two accounts, thank you for having me as a panelist in this very, very pertinent discussion. And also, for engaging and bringing up such issues which are of concern to the society at a very large level today. I would like to first congratulate you and your team for making the effort and on your 2-year anniversary of Team Social Legal Literary. And I have seen the journey that you have been undertaking, and it is indeed commendable, the effort put in by the students. And that is exactly, I think, where we will end up the discussion today, that the youth really needs to take on the baton and move forward and direct the course of constitutional values which have to be followed by this nation. I would also like to thank Professor Manoj Kumar Jha for his views, and very, very rightly he says that equality is the basis of where we must start. And the Indian Constitution, being so elastic, as he puts it so well, means that the Constitution must be able to provide answers to all these questions that we have to engage with in today. You are particularly referring to those categories of people who have or have been suffering on different accounts, whether it is women, whether it is on the basis of religion or other minority people or the queer people, even though they have had backing recently from the apex court, but still a lot needs to be done. Now, as I look at the status, even speaking of women, although we have been fighting for the cause of women for a long time, it's since 1950 that the Constitution was given to us. The values of equality, of dignity, of non-discrimination at various levels were propounded and established. But like Professor Jha has pointed out, that we have somewhere failed in our commitment to those values. But recent incidents or recent efforts of the government somehow would show that maybe we have managed to sort of turn the table and turn the debate at a certain level. For example, the legal age of marriage for women has been 18 years, but now, as you are aware, that it has been, the proposal has been made to raise it to 21 years. And I think, this is the step to amend the existing law, which incorporates the different age of marriages, which to do away the different ages of marriage, which is basically based on the patriarchal stereotype mindset, which reflects the view that, women are probably more mature than men of the same age, or that wives must be younger than their husbands. So, the institution of marriage. So when you speak of civil society and our effort, the solution which has to be provided, it is the civil society which has to move towards this direction and make that effort. Because when the Constitution of India speaks of equality, the basis of the Constitution is equality. This is the first promise of the Constitution, that is to provide justice. And justice can never be given if there is inequality. So inequality of any kind, whether it is with respect to women or particularly on the basis of gender or caste or religion, specifically prohibited by the Constitution in so many ways and manners and upheld time and again by the apex court, needs to be understood at a deeper level, I feel. And of course, programs like you people have undertaken and are doing, the effort which is being made by you is a very, very important commitment to that movement. The movement which Professor Jha is also speaking of, that we have to how change it of the people in the society, the mindset of the eaters, the people who are educating the youth of this nation, because that is where the seeds will be planted. And of course, at the very institutional level, the three institutions of the government, that is the legislature, the ministers, and the judges, have to make sure that they work in tandem to ensure that equality is implemented and reflected in their work. The statutes, the laws must be gender sensitive or sensitive towards religion and their needs, desires, and wants. And India is a fantastic country. We have been able to, our constitution is a fabulous work of art. We had very, very wise people who drafted this constitution, and it has been able to withstand all kinds of negative influences and attacks on its core values. Unlike our neighbors who got freedom at the same time, none of the neighbors can boast of a similar constitution or similar constitutional values. And I think it's something to be proud of, that we have been able to sustain this during all these times. So yes, there is a lot of work which has happened, but there is a need to strengthen the democracy that India stands for. And that means more of pluralism, more of inclusion of the minorities, different minorities in different aspects, must be reflected in the statutes which are enacted, must be reflected in the policies which are implemented, and the decisions coming from the apex court, the guardian of the Constitution of India. So I hope that will somehow attempt to answer what you have been asking me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for putting it so beautifully. My next question is directed to Nagesh sir. So a few years ago, we celebrated our 72nd Republic Day. With the celebration of our Constitution, it also brings the realization that the transformation of the academic text to a practical text in terms of the diverse rights which have been guaranteed to us, especially to the vulnerable sections of the society, has not yet become a reality. What is the main cause of this deficiency, and what role will civic literacy and awareness play in the same?
Yeah, thank you, Tasneem and all team. First of all, for inviting me for this discussion. And definitely, I would like to talk about this question. But I would like to talk, or I would like to express my thoughts in Hindi. So I could express मैं अच्छी तरीके से उसको रख पाऊंगा इसके वजह से। आपने जो कहा वो सही है कि हमने 72 साल हो गए और हमने वो मनाया भी। और प्रोफेसर मनोज झा सर ने जो कहा कि ये एक रिचुअल बनते भी जा रहा है, ये मनाना भी एक रिचुअल बनते जा रहा है। डेफिनेटली ये रिचुअल नहीं बनना चाहिए, वो लोगों तक पहुंचना चाहिए। और मुझे लगता है कि वही सबसे ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम हो गया है हमारे पूरे 70-72 साल में, कि हम लोगों तक हमारा संविधान पहुंचा नहीं पाए। फिर भी हम जब गांव में कहीं भी जाते हैं, देखते हैं, और अभी मैम ने जो भी कहा कि विमेन जो है वो मेल से ज्यादा मतलब कम एज की होनी चाहिए मैरिज के वक्त। उसके 2-3 कारण हैं, क्योंकि वो कम एज की होगी तो वो ज्यादा सुंदर दिखेगी उससे, और वो सुंदर विमेन होनी चाहिए। कम एज की होगी तो मैन जो है वो उसके ऊपर कंट्रोल कर सकता है। ऐसी बहुत सारे कारण हैं, जो बहुत सारे कारण यहाँ के प्रॉब्लमेटिक संस्कृति से आए हुए हैं। प्रॉब्लमेटिक संस्कृति से मैं अभी कह रहा हूँ, क्योंकि वो कहीं भी लिखे हुए नहीं है हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कि इस तरीके की चीजें हमारे यहाँ होनी चाहिए। लेकिन इक्वालिटी लिखी है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, फिर भी हम लोगों ने हमारे सामाजिक तरीके के जो नियम है, हमारे धार्मिक तरीके के जो नियम है, हमारे आम जिंदगी के जो नियम है, उसमें हमने वो नियम, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की फिलॉसफी अभी तक नहीं लेके गए हैं। क्योंकि हम बहुत बार जब वर्कशॉप लेते हैं तब एक सवाल पूछते हैं लोगों को, आप धार्मिक बनना चाहते हैं या नागरिक बनना चाहते हैं? तो कंफ्यूजन होता है लोगों को, अरे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने तो धर्म की आजादी दी है, और ये कह रहे धार्मिक बनना चाहते हैं या नागरिक बनना चाहते हैं। डेफिनेटली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने धर्म की आजादी दी है, लेकिन हर कोई धार्मिक बनना चाहता है, नागरिक बनना नहीं चाहता। हमारे यहाँ हम हमेशा ये बताते भी है कि हम बहुत पढ़ते हैं, और डॉक्टर होते हैं, इंजीनियर होते हैं, प्रोफेसर होते हैं, फलाना फलाना बहुत सारे कुछ बनते हैं। और वो सारी जो शिक्षा है, वो सारी की सारी शिक्षा करियर बिल्ड करने के लिए होती है, पेट पालने के लिए होती है। लेकिन जिस जिस देश में हम रह रहे हैं, उस देश का जो संविधान है, उसके आधार पर जो हमको नागरिकता मिली है, तो ऐसा नागरिक करके साक्षर नहीं हम होते हैं, नागरिक करके शिक्षित नहीं हम होते हैं। ये शिक्षित होने की जो बात है वो अभी तक बाकी रही है, और उसी के वजह से ये जो टेक्स्ट है वो टेक्स्ट रहा है, यहाँ नहीं, लोगों के दिलों में, लोगों के दिमाग में नहीं उतरा है। एक ही बात करना चाहूंगा लास्ट में, कि डेफिनेटली मैं मानता हूं कि ये रिचुअल्स नहीं होने चाहिए, लेकिन ये और भी इस तरीके की चीजें, मतलब ये माहौल बनाने की एक बात भी होती है। क्योंकि हमारा जो समाज है, वो समाज जो अलग अलग जो हमारे त्योहार है, उस त्योहारों से उसको अच्छा लगता है। तो हम इस तरीके के त्योहार मनाएं जो संविधान के हो। हमारे यहाँ आज भी, मतलब महाराष्ट्र में अगर मैं बताऊं आपको, तो मुंबई जैसे शहर में, पुणे जैसे शहर में जो सोसाइटीज है, बड़ी बड़ी सोसाइटीज है, हाईफाई सोसाइटीज है, वो 26 जनवरी को सत्यनारायण की पूजा रखते हैं, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बारे में बात नहीं करते। सो इसको बदलना बहुत जरूरी है। कम से कम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की बात करेंगे, तब लोगों तक जाके ये पहुंचेगा, तब समझेंगे, जो लोगों तक आ जाएगा और उस तरीके का समाज हो जाएगा। तो हमने बहुत प्रयास जो करने चाहिए वो शायद नहीं किए हैं। इसी के वजह से ये जो टेक्स्ट है, ये लोगों की जिंदगी में अभी तक नहीं होता है।
Thank you so much, sir. Uh, we have been informed that Professor Manoj has to leave for certain urgent commitments. We would like to thank you, sir, for taking out time from your busy schedule during the parliamentary sessions and extending your support to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on with our session, my next question is directed to Professor Bedi. I would like to give a trigger warning for mention of rape, Islamophobia, and harassment before asking my question. A few disturbing incidents have taken place recently. The Sully and Bully deals, where the images for Muslim women were auctioned online, and the current discourse on marital rape and the systematic sanction it receives, all of these directly strike at the foundation of the fundamental rights guaranteed to women. It must also be noticed that these particularly affect women who come from vulnerable communities. These are very pertinent issues, and at the same time, they are inherently repetitive as well. Does the lack of civic awareness among the perpetrators as well as the victims contribute to their abuse? And as members of civil society who are engaged in civic awareness, what steps should we take to improve the situation?
Thank you, Tasneem. And I'm again very glad that this discussion on this point is taking place on this forum. Because like I said, it's the youth which needs to take the lead. I would like to answer this question from where Dr. Jadhav has left his take on the issue. And that is that the text of the Constitution has not been understood at the grassroots level. So the exercise which your team has undertaken to elicit information from different areas or different states in India regarding constitutional literacy is commendable for this reason, because it gives us an insight into what is actually happening. Now, there are two aspects here. One, like I see that, we do incorporate constitution readings and education on constitutional values in our syllabus in the schools. But unfortunately, somewhere or the other, we seem to be moving away from really understanding this. And I feel the reason is that the educators themselves are unable to really understand what they need to convey. Because it is not simply learning the text of the Constitution, it is to understand the deep meaning behind it by giving examples like what you're talking of today. And the unfortunate issue of the Suli deals and the Bully by app is really again reflected of a certain segment in the Indian society, which thinks still in a way where minority communities and vulnerable communities can be targeted. And I have myself, which has been spewing on social media on this particular aspect. Any woman speaking up against marital rape or speaking up against what is happening is the subject of hate speech, which is again taking so many forms because of the kind of media that we have access today. So it is extremely unfortunate to see this kind of a situation which is prevalent in the society and the level at which it is prevalent. It really it requires extraordinary amount of determination to take it to a level which is so negative in its outlook. And, I feel the answer here is, of course, the primary one, which is there, that the police must take immediate action, because the fact being that the original Suli deals were not pursued as well. The criminal case was not pursued properly enough. And that could be one of the reasons which really prompted the other, mishap. And the rage which comes out is reflective of what is happening in the digital world. And, one of the reasons which I feel, although, I think it was the national coordinator of the All India Mahila Congress, who has also been the target of this online hate campaign, was also, saying that they are trying to silence these women and target the community, because with the app specifically, with the use of Gurmukhi. The reason which she says is that they wanted to target the Muslim community. And this was maybe, I'm not sure that this is right or wrong, but this is a perspective which has been put forth. And women here are being humiliated emotionally, morally, and those women who are speaking out are being threatened at various levels. So again, when we talk of fighting the forms of patriarchy, we have gone through years of hard work, of perseverance, and it is very worrying to see the state that we are in today. And I also feel, this is somehow to do with the digital world. For 2 years, our brains are now being only dealing with the digital world. So the digital world sort of has taken over our lives. We are forced to deal with this kind of reality because there is an enormous amount of stress which people are dealing with, and there are neuropsychologists who are pointing this out. For example, I remember some reading somewhere that there are students who say that we don't want to travel, we don't want to visit a place like Rome because we have digitally visited the city. And this online impact which we have had to face due to the COVID-19 pandemic somehow seems to have destroyed the avenues which the children and the young people usually are exposed to. When they're exposed to the reality, they are able to expand their space, they are able to make bonds, friendships, develop relationships, define their identity in different ways. They are able to go out and explore. This has been missing, and that bond has broken. There is no physical proximity with anyone, and because if you look at the people, the students who were the people behind this app are educated, young educated students who are pursuing engineering. So it is not the lack of education, but I feel that somehow we need to also take into account the impact this online world is having on us at a certain level. So this is something that we need to work on as parents, as teachers who are trying to do. And of course, moving out of this kind of a mindset is very, very essential today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My next question is directed towards Nagesh, sir. Sir, you have been engaged with this organization who are constantly working towards civic literacy, such as CORO, Samvidhan Pracharak. What is our responsibility as members of the civic society who are working towards the cause, and therefore we have certain resources which can further it, and the end that we seek to achieve? Will we be able to achieve the same through our efforts?
बिल्कुल, मतलब मैं जिस संगठन से जुड़ा हुआ हूँ, तो एक संगठन जिसका आपने नाम लिया कोरो, वो बिल्कुल ग्रास रूट में जाकर लोगों को बदलाव के लिए लीडरशिप तैयार करने का काम करता है। और दूसरे में एक पीपल्स मूवमेंट से जुड़ा हुआ हूँ, उसका नाम है संविधान प्रचारक, जो लोगों को संविधान प्रचारक बना के संविधान का जो बातें हैं वो लोगों तक पहुंचाने की कोशिश करते हैं। ऐसे ये प्रयास ये दो चल रहे हैं। तो दोनों जगह से संविधान की बातों को लोगों तक लेके जाने की बिल्कुल अच्छी तरीके की बहुत सारी चीजें हम करते रहे। लेकिन जब हम ये काम करते हैं तो ये एक बात जो समझ में आ जाती है कि बहुत बार संविधान को बिल्कुल एक कैटेगरी के बारे में बोला जाता है कि ये सिर्फ एक कैटेगरी के लिए है। खास करके डॉक्टर B.R. अम्बेडकर का नाम जुड़ा हुआ है संविधान को लेकर, इसके वजह से खास करके आरक्षण की बात और संविधान की बात साथ में लोग करते हैं। इसके वजह से ये एक कैटेगरी, एक समूह के बारे में ही संविधान है, ऐसे लोगों को लगता है। तो हमको एज अ फैसिलिटेटर ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वैल्यूज को लेकर जो काम करने वाले जो लोग हैं, उनको ये ध्यान में रखना चाहिए, ये बहुत जरूरी है कि संविधान कैसे भारत के सभी लोगों ने इकट्ठा आके बनाया। उसमें किस तरीके के अलग अलग लोग थे, ये बहुत जरूरी है। क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग, मतलब 85% से ज्यादा लोगों को संविधान अपना लगता ही नहीं। उनको लगता है ये या तो ये वकीलों का है, या तो ये राज्यकर्ताओं का है, या तो ये गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस में इस्तेमाल होता है, या फिर ये दलितों का है। तो इस सोच को बदलना सबसे पहला जरूरी बात है। अगर हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे काम करना चाहते हैं तो इस सोच को सबसे पहले बदले, और वो फैक्ट के आधार पर बदले। कोई कोई ये नहीं है कि हम कुछ गलत बात कह रहे हैं, ऐसे नहीं है। इस संविधान को बनाने के लिए सारे लोग इकट्ठा आए थे, महिलाएं भी थी, ये भी लोगों को पता नहीं होता है। तो अगर ये बात हम कहे लोगों के साथ कि महिलाएं भी संविधान सभा में थी, तो महिलाओं को कनेक्ट हो जाता। हमने पिछले 3-4 साल पहले एक पोस्टर प्रदर्शन बनाया था संविधान को लेकर। और उस वक्त हमने जो बात सोची कि अगर ये लोग पोस्टर प्रदर्शन लेके गांव में जाएंगे संविधान के बारे में बात करने के लिए, तो हमको क्या करना चाहिए। तो वो 14 पोस्टर हमने बनाए, लेकिन उसमें से सबसे पहले वाले जो 5 पोस्टर है, 14 में से 5 पोस्टर सिर्फ इसके ऊपर बनाए हैं कि संविधान और हमारा क्या रिश्ता है, हम संविधान से कैसे जुड़े हुए हैं, हमारे जिंदगी में संविधान का क्या महत्व है। क्योंकि जब तक ये लोगों को पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि जीवन के पहले से भी और जीवन के बाद भी, हम बहुत बार वो LIC की पॉलिसी आपको पता है, जीवन के साथ भी जीवन के बाद भी। संविधान तो जीवन के पहले से भी, मतलब हम जब माँ के कोख में होते हैं तब से हमारी रक्षा करते रहता है। और कब तक, जब हम मर भी अगर गए तो भी हमारे परिवार को, हमारे लोगों को के बारे में सोचने का काम अगर कौन करता है तो संविधान के वजह से होता है। ये सारा सरकार को करना पड़ता है। तो ये जो बात है लोगों को कनेक्ट करना, अभी मैं 2-4 और उदाहरण देना चाहूंगा। जैसे कि कोरो में जो हम काम करते हैं, उस काम में हमने संविधान के ऊपर जो काम करते हैं उसमें हमने एक वारकरी संप्रदाय के जो महाराज है, हिंदू हिंदू समाज में महाराष्ट्र में वारकरी समुदाय बहुत बड़ा है, जो संत ज्ञानेश्वर, संत तुकाराम, इन जैसे संतों ने, संत नामदेव, सबको पता है, पंजाब तक वो गए थे। उन्होंने वारकरी संप्रदाय का निर्माण किया। भक्ति का मार्ग है उनमें, लेकिन इस भक्ति के साथ साथ रैशनैलिटी बहुत है। लेकिन बहुत बार क्या होता है कि लोग भक्ति में ही लुप्त हो जाते हैं, और संविधान के विरोध करने वाले जो लोग हैं, इनको धार्मिक सत्ता चाहिए इस भारत में, वो इनके जरिए, इस तरीके के महाराजों के जरिए लोगों तक पहुंचते, क्योंकि ये महाराज जाकर प्रवचन देते हैं। तो हमने ऐसे जो लोग हैं उनके साथ बात की, वो साथ में आए। श्याम सुंदर महाराज करके जो है, वो अभी संतों के जो विचार है और संविधान का के मूल्य क्या है, इसके बारे में बातें रखते हैं। उन्होंने किताब भी लिखा है। तो इस तरीके के बात करें कि हमारी जो संस्कृति है, इस संस्कृति से ये संविधान कैसे जुड़ा हुआ है, इसकी बात होनी चाहिए। बहुत बार ये बोला जाता है कि यार संविधान में भारत की संस्कृति का कुछ है ही नहीं, तो हम कैसे कैसे उसको अपनाएं। लेकिन ये हमको बताना पड़ेगा, ये जो स्वतंत्रता है, ये जो न्याय है, ये जो समानता है, ये जो बंधुता है, ये सारी चीजें हमारे संस्कृति से ही आई हुई है। संस्कृति के ये मूल्य है। ये हमको लोगों तक लेके जाने के लिए, लोगों तक संविधान लेके जाने के लिए बताना पड़ेगा। और ये सारी बातें जब हम बताएं, जब हम अलग अलग धर्म के लोगों को, धर्म में जो अच्छी बातें हैं, धर्म के जो मौलाना जैसे लोग भी हमारे साथ में, जो कुरान में क्या अच्छी बात लिखी है और संविधान में क्या उससे जुड़ा जा सकता है, इसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं। तो इस तरीके से जो अभी लोगों को लग रहा है कि ये अच्छा है, तो उससे जुड़कर ही संविधान को लेके जा। जैसे संविधान प्रचारक नाम का जो लोक संगठन है, जो पीपल्स मूवमेंट है, उन्होंने एक कंसेप्ट अपनाई है और वो करते भी है कि जहां त्योहार वहां संविधान, कुछ भी त्योहार हो तो वहां वो संविधान की बातें लेके जाते हैं, ज्ञान की चौपाटी करते हैं, या हर त्योहार से मिलकर संविधान की क्या बातें जुड़ी हुई है इस पर बात करते हैं। तो उससे क्या होता है, लोग संविधान से कनेक्ट हो जाते हैं। और ये सारे लोग जो है, ये घुमंतु समाज के लोग हैं, दलित लोग हैं, यहां तक ही नहीं तो हाई प्रोफाइल लोग जो है वहां भी जाकर संविधान के साथ काम करना चाहिए, संविधान को लेके जाना चाहिए। इसलिए हम कहते हैं कि अनरिच संविधान जहां तक पहुंचा नहीं है वहां तक लेके जाने की जरूरत है और उसके प्रयास करने की जरूरत है, ऐसे मुझे लगता है। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, sir. Um, It is only today that we were assigned a reading in our English class, which stressed on how inaccessible the Constitution is to the people. And it is through the work that you do that these constitutional values are reached to the masses. We truly draw our inspiration from organizations like CORO and Samvidhan Pracharak. Thank you, sir. With this, we come to an end of our panel discussion. I thank all of our guests for beautifully addressing the pertinent issues of civic awareness and civic literacy. The discussion today brings out one important theme. The civic awareness and civic literacy at the community level is needed now more than ever. We invite you to engage with our report in any manner. In its 72nd spring as a constitution and as a republic, India is fighting to maintain its constitutional existence. The state's restrictions on civil liberties, the dwindling space of discourse in a parliamentary democracy, and the authority acting like a majoritarian state make civic literacy and civic awareness indispensable for upholding our democratic fabric. I would like to end today's discussion with a few words from a poem by Sarveshwar Dayal Saxena. यदि तुम्हारे घर के एक कमरे में आग लगी हो तो क्या तुम दूसरे कमरे में सो सकते हो? यदि तुम्हारे घर के एक कमरे में लाशें सड़ रही हो तो क्या तुम दूसरे कमरे में प्रार्थना कर सकते हो? यदि हाँ, तो मुझे तुमसे कुछ नहीं कहना है। देश कागज पर बना नक्शा नहीं होता कि एक हिस्से के फट जाने पर बाकी हिस्से उसी तरह साबुत बने रहे और नदियां, पर्वत, शहर, गांव वैसे ही अपनी अपनी जगह दिखे। यदि तुम यह नहीं मानते तो मुझे तुम्हारे साथ नहीं रहना है। With this, I would like to invite one of our founding board members, Priya Jain, for the vote of thanks.
Hello everyone. I'm so sorry my camera is not working. So on behalf of Social Legal Literary and Constitution Connect, I would like to thank today's guest for panel discussion, for Professor Manoj, who after a busy schedule in Parliament spared time for us, Professor Shruti Bedi and Nagesh Jadhav for both in their capacity consistently a guiding path for us. Volunteers and researchers who helped us in the research and gauging data. Professor Tarunab Khetan, Surbhi Karwa, Gurshad Grover, Ambika, Vinith from Center for Internet Society and CLPR. Our team members Kundan Kumar Chaudhary, Bhavna Sharma, our founder Rajesh Ranjan, former colleagues, especially Rajya for her constant support, and everyone who supported us in the journey. We would continue working towards equality, literacy, and participatory democracy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please have a good day ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.